I love meeting a couple. This is going to sound funny, but like almost seeing like the anxiety and fear in their eyes because they're so nervous because they, being in front of the camera. And then I love just like soothing them and like making them
Aw.
feel comfortable and then just seeing them completely just relax and then have a really good time. It's just like you see like that transition in them and their body language and the way, especially in guys, like a lot of guys do not necessarily like to get their photos taken. So I especially see it in them. So it's almost like this little game I almost play. It's like how far can we take this couple? I mean, every couple is different. They all have different personalities. But yeah, I love directing couples and I love just like finding the ways to make them feel comfortable so that they can be directed or posed or whatever we're doing.
When I first started my wedding photography business back in 2011, I made just $5,000 in my business. Now, I bring in multiple six figures per year while working only 30-hour weeks serving my dream couples. I'm here to help you discover that it's so possible to have what you want when you want in your business so that you can create the life you've always dreamed of and deserve. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Shine and Thrive podcast. I'm so excited today for my best. I was going to say a guest and I said best because her name is Becca. So I totally just had a dyslexic moment. That's so funny. I'm so excited for my guest. Well, best guest ever, Becca Cannon. I cannot wait to have this conversation with her. We're going to be chatting about things like moving your business, your photography business from one market to another, because she had to do that. And also all about client relationships and posing to make your shoots more fun. She's incredibly talented. Definitely check her out right now on Instagram if you are able to. It's Becca with 2 C's, Cannon with 2 N's, and photo on Instagram. Her work is incredible. And yeah, Becca, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Yay. And we're popping your podcast cherry.
Yes, this is my first podcast. I am so excited. So thank you so much for asking me to do this.
Of course. And are you ready to jump into the Would You Rather icebreaker?
Yes, for sure.
Okay. I'm so excited. All right. So first question, would you rather live in the extreme cold for a year or the extreme heat?
Oh, heat for sure. 100%. I definitely love the warmth. Give me all the warmth.
That's awesome. I agree. And wait, where do you live again?
So I live in Colorado and we're still in winter season. So, which I don't mind, but I'm definitely ready for summer.
Yeah, cool. Same. And I love Colorado. Oh my God. I've been there
Yes,
and
it's so beautiful.
yeah. Okay. Second question. Would you rather forget your phone at home while out for a whole day or have no access to internet and your phone while you're at home for the whole day?
Oh, wow. That's so interesting. I'd probably rather leave my phone if I was out for a whole day, because actually I sometimes do that anyways, because I don't like to be attached to my phone. So I'll just leave it. And also I do that on accident too. I just forget it. I'm like kind of notorious for forgetting things or leaving things at home. So that's pretty normal. But yeah, I think I'd rather just leave my phone at home and have a phone-free day. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, because you get to just adventure around, be out in nature, be present, and yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so for the third question, would you rather be able to travel to the future or the past for 1 month?
Oh my gosh. I think I'd rather travel to the past for a month
Cool.
because I don't know why. Because I think I don't want to know what happens in the future, I think I'm going to leave that up to, fate, I guess. And then I think it'd be fun to relive some of my past, experiences in life.
Yeah, I totally
Throwback.
know what you mean. It's like, let's just
Yeah.
not know what happens so that we can still kind of like just peacefully, in a way, move on with the unknown.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, it'd be fun to throw back to my teen years, and
Oh, yeah.
so yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah, the last moments I feel like that we had when really, we were just so free, right? Before
Yeah.
we
Oh,
started
true.
adulting and like being like money is essential. Like
I
I totally miss my
know.
teen years too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So much less stress back then. Just had a good time.
Yeah. But you know what's actually every time I think of life that way, it kind of trips me out because if I think of life in 10 years from now, then when we look back on this moment right now, at whatever age we're at right now, it's like we'll think the same thing. Life
Yeah,
was so much more less
true.
stressful,
Yeah.
right? Isn't that so
Yeah.
trippy?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Especially like once if we ever start having kids, and like, kids, it's just there's extra chaos, I am assuming, that
Yeah.
comes with kids. So me and kids are gonna look back on our lives and be like, oh yeah, remember when we didn't have kids and we just lived our life and it wasn't as crazy.
Exactly.
But
It's
I
so
embrace the
funny.
crazy. Like I love crazy, Enneagram 7.
Yeah, all the way. Okay, so since you like crazy, this is the perfect segue into the next question.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
Would you rather shart during a session secretly or puke during a session for your couple to see?
Oh my God.
And a shart, you know what a shart is. It's like you
Yes.
think you're farting, but then a little bit comes out. So it's like not a full-on poop. So it's just a
Right.
little.
Yeah. I think, I think I would rather shart. I think I literally think I actually have like anxiety thinking about throwing up in front of somebody.
Wow.
Because which has happened, almost happened on a photo shoot once. I
Really?
ended up getting the flu. This was a couple years ago. I
Yeah.
ended up getting the flu like the day of this photo shoot, but I was like, but I hadn't had the flu in years, so I didn't recognize the symptoms.
Yeah.
And so I think I was like literally just holding it in the entire session. And as
Oh.
soon as they left, I just yeah, it was not fun. I had a wedding the next day too, so it was like my first wedding I ever had
Oh.
to bail on. It was rough. It was rough. So I think that's just like a fear of mine, just like other people seeing me puke. So
That's totally understandable. That's freaking traumatizing. So
yeah.
did you literally, was the session like outside and then after they left, you literally just puked in the bushes?
Yeah. Okay. Actually, it was awful. So it's a little story, but the photo shoot, where it was literally kind of on top of this mountain. So we had to like do this hike and literally rock climb a
Oh
little
my
bit
God.
to get on top of like this cliff. It's a very popular spot where I went to college. I mean, everybody, who I went to college with knows the spot. And so I've always wanted to do a photo shoot here. So we finally, so I was like feeling so sick and we were like hiked up and then we climbed up and we were up there, did the whole shoot. And then I had like Kidron was with me and like another friend was with me. So they kind of knew I wasn't feeling good. So after the session, I just kind of sent the couple away like, hey, like we'll catch up or like you guys head down. We're just going to hang out here for a little bit. So they left and I just was like shaking and I was trying to make it down the mountain, like, cause you literally have to like rock climb down. And I
Yeah.
only got down like halfway and I couldn't hold it anymore. And
Oh my
I just
gosh.
had to, I'm not going to give too gross of details,
Yeah.
but I felt a lot better after that though.
Yeah, those
Yeah.
moments where you just have to, those are the worst. If you're like on a
Yeah.
bus and you have to pee for hours and then you finally
Hmm.
like release, it's like those moments are just like, aren't they just the best? And you're
Yeah.
like, I'm just so grateful I can do this right now.
Yeah. Luckily, I
Oh,
think that's like the only time I've been, well, yeah. Yeah. I think that's the only time I've been sick. Like,
yeah.
working or like doing a photo shoot or something. I've never been sick at a wedding or anything like that. So
Yeah.
luckily.
Luckily, knock on wood. Like knock on
Yeah,
wood.
seriously. Ah,
All
oh
right.
gosh.
So one more question. So
Okay.
would you rather be forced to dance every time you heard music or be forced to sing along to any song you heard every time you
Um,
heard a song?
yeah, I think I would rather probably dance because I am a terrible singer. But I
At least
do
you
like
know
to
it.
sing. Wait, what'd you say?
I was like, at least you know it.
Oh yeah, yeah, I for sure know. I hope my mom's not listening, but I think I got my mom's voice.
Oh, that's so funny.
I love my mom to death though, but yeah, I'm not the greatest, but I do love singing though. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like I love singing. I don't mind if people are hearing me sing, but like at least I know that I'm not a good singer while
Yeah.
I'm singing, like, so it's fine. But I think I would probably, but I think I'd rather dance, than have to sing every single time.
Yeah.
for other people's sake.
That's so funny. Oh
Yeah,
my gosh. Okay, well, that was so much fun. I love
it
that we
was
got even got
fun.
a little story out of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm so excited to dive into the conversation. And I think I would love to start with your experience with moving your business from one market to another. So, like, did you move? I think you said you moved state to state, like,
hmm
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, like maybe let us know some of the challenges that you faced and some things that helped you do so successfully.
Absolutely. So I lived in near Nashville, Tennessee for about 4.5 years right after me and Kidron got married. And honestly, well, even that in itself, because that's where I started my business. So I completely started from scratch in Tennessee. And then after 4.5 years, we just moved to Colorado a few months ago. So those are two really key moments I feel like in my business that I've grown a lot from. And so especially moving to Colorado, like everything I had started, because like I said, started from scratch, was like built in Tennessee. So like everything was done in Tennessee, so starting up was hard, but moving all of it, I feel like was actually more difficult than I thought it would be. But to say, me and Kidron like did plan for a couple of years to move. So we knew we were going to move. We knew when we wanted to move, and we basically set up a plan, like had these small goals and a plan for years to be able to move the business. So I know not everybody has like like that kind of, I know not everyone's fortunate enough to be able to plan 2 years out in advance when they're going to move, right? Like some people find out, oh, I have to move in a few months. Like, what do I do? How do I move my business? So I think some things might be a little bit different, but some of the challenges I would say would be just marketing. It was a bigger challenge than I thought it would be. And I would have done things a little differently. But what I would say is, marketing as much as possible in the new location as soon as you know that you're going to move. Because for us, I feel like I didn't start marketing soon enough. And so if you're going to move even in a few months or a year or whenever, take trips out, set up shoots, even if it's just free shoots or, discounted shoots or whatever, just like get as much content as you possibly can, even if it's just one trip or several trips or if you can't make it, then as soon as you get to that location, just start setting up shoots, free shoots or whatever. That's exactly what I did to get as much content as possible. So you can just start posting the crap out of it and blogging it, change all the SEO on your website, on your Instagram, everything. I think, and so I think that was a little bit more eye-opening than I realized, because when we moved out here, it was a slow season when we moved out here. So I should have kind of thought about that. I didn't really think about that, but yeah, we moved here in like the end of December, beginning of January. So we did. So in Colorado, like I didn't know the market out here. I'm still learning, but like didn't know the market out here super well. So I guess I just kind of assumed it would still be a little bit busy during the winter because it's so beautiful out here. But most, from talking to a ton of other photographers and vendors and all the things, it sounds like, more like late spring, to late fall is like the busiest. And a lot of people just don't book a lot during the winter. So it's kind of, I don't know, I think I'm like kind of bouncing around, but like the market in general, it's hard to learn the new market wherever you're going. The busy seasons are going to be different, and then just knowing when people are going to book, and then marketing, into like the new location. So it's just been, it's been like, eye-opening. I did what I did when we moved out here was, I took several trips throughout the year before we moved, probably 2 or 3 different trips, and did a bunch of shoots. And so I would kind of post them occasionally, but what I wish I had done is literally just like left any like Nashville, Tennessee, any kind of shoot that I was doing out of my Instagram, out of my website, for that whole year leading up to it, and just posted and marketed towards Colorado. Like I wish I had just done that, because if I had, I think I would have had a much bigger step up versus like kind of doing some of both, because people were also really confused about where I live. They're like, wait, are you in
Yeah.
Tennessee? Are you in Colorado? Like, what are you doing? So I feel like I wasn't super clear on my message. And so I wish I had just, marketed all towards Colorado. And then once we got out here, it's basically like we've been here for a year. Like that's what I wish I would have done. But I was kind of like mixing and matching. And then it wasn't until like maybe a few months before is when I really fully like, push everything towards Colorado. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It
I don't
makes
know.
sense. Like, thanks for sharing that. It makes sense because like if you're a year out from moving, you're like in this like limbo phase, and it's scary to pre-commit to just marketing one location when like logically you're thinking I'm not even physically there yet. But maybe now, since you've like kind of learned from your experience, maybe now it's kind of like you realize that, hey, if I just start marketing and hashtagging the shit out of this new location, I still have referrals from past clients locally. I still have
Yeah.
people that know I'm local, and you can keep talking about like how, hey, I'm also, well, I guess, wait, actually question, were you telling your audience that you're going to move in a year, or
Yes.
was it
I think
still like a secret or like, private
no,
information?
I like announced it like 2 years before we were actually going to move. And so I think that was like, people were so confused because even though I kept saying like, oh, hey, like in 2 years, or hey, in like, 18 months, or 1 year down, like 6 months away, like people thought we had already moved, or people were just confused. I feel like I just didn't do a good job of like being really clear with my message of like what our plans were and what we were doing. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, but this is really good. I love everything you're sharing because it's like we can learn from your
Yes,
mistake, which is
exactly. Learn from my
huge.
mistakes.
Yeah. And on top of that, I think something that comes to mind is like maybe even in your stories or in your posts, if every week or every 2 weeks you wrote, still taking on sessions here in Nashville and Tennessee for until this date. So like make sure to book me in before I'm gone, and then still continually marketing to, hey, Colorado weddings next year, I'm there, I'm like, book me for your call, like with your wedding in Colorado. If you were to just be very clear in that way, then I bet you would have
Yeah.
got like a lot more people would have a sense of urgency, number one, to like book you for both
Yeah, for
locations.
sure.
And I think a lot of the times we think that we're repeating ourselves too much if we keep saying the same shit over and over
Yeah.
again. But we
Yeah,
have to remember that not every single human or follower sees our post
exactly.
every time. And sometimes people even need to see something 5 times to actually register it. So
Yes.
yeah, for
Yeah.
anyone in this transition, don't be scared to keep repeating yourself.
Oh, that's actually something I wish someone had told me, honestly, because I think that's actually something I've learned even just in the past few months of like, keep like speaking it, keep talking about it, keep saying it, even if you're like putting it in every single post, like just keep talking about it and people are going to catch on. And I think that's why my message was getting so confused, because I'm like, why aren't people understanding that like we still have a year until we move? But it's because like I only mention it every few months, and people aren't registering it, and people were confused, and I wasn't doing a good job of really communicating it. So I think that is really important, like really speaking it into the universe of, what you're doing, what your plans are, and like, where you're marketing and that kind of thing. And yeah, just repeating, even if you feel like you're on repeat, it's like, and you're right, like not everyone's going to see every single post. So it's good to just kind of keep throwing it out there.
Yeah, I love that. Awesome. And so when you finally, moved out there and you started marketing like even more there, like how long did you feel like you got a good hang of like, okay, I'm starting to consistently book locally in Colorado?
Yeah, so I think something I struggled with at first was figuring out my pricing out here, because that's actually another huge transition when you're like switching markets, is you have to also, kind of reevaluate what you're pricing. So like in Tennessee, Tennessee is just in general cheaper to live in, and so my prices weren't as high as I would probably have them here in Colorado. So it was one of those things. So when we got out here, I like almost doubled my prices when I got out here, which was not a good idea. So again, more mistakes that we can learn from. And so, yeah, I literally just like raised the heck out of my prices and like right away. So I was actually getting a lot of inquiries. Like I had a lot of inquiries coming in, but then as soon as I set my pricing, they were like, nope, because the hard part too, there's so much that I'm still learning, but here in Colorado, there are so many more photographers even here, even more than there were, where I came from. So with that, there's so many photographers with such a wide range of pricing that you'll always be able to find a good I mean, there's a lot of good photographers here too, so you'll always be able to find somebody cheaper. So that's been kind of hard to kind of be like, okay, I'm still new here in the market. Like I need to at least get my foot in the door. Cause like the whole first year in my head it's not solid yet. Like I need to get my foundation here before I can actually raise my prices to like what I want to be like have them at. Cause I need to get people to know that I'm here. I need venues to see that I'm here and get couples to know that I'm here. So I did get a lot of inquiries, but nobody was willing to book me. So I ended up lowering my prices a little bit, not as low as I had them in Tennessee, but I did lower them. And I started getting more bookings after that. And I don't really know why, I guess because people are like, okay, it's more of a competitive pricing for what other photographers are charging. So that was a whole learning curve that I was like, that took probably, 2 months of us just living here, figuring out like, where do I need to put my pricing at, So that's a hard thing to kind of think about. So yeah, if you're planning on moving your business, look at the market, look at what other photographers are charging, look at the expenses, what are your expenses going to be? It is so expensive to live in Colorado. Like our expenses have probably doubled just living here. So it's a little crazy and we're still getting used to it, but yeah, kind of reevaluating your pricing and not, don't undercharge yourself. Like definitely don't want to encourage undercharging, but charging probably the lowest that you can just to start booking and start getting in with vendors and venues and getting all that content and portfolio and really showing people that you're here and that you're working, I think is really important, even if it's just within the first half of the year or so. And then after that, I have to, I was told this because when we first moved here, it was really hard. And someone told me, look at your first year in Colorado, kind of like your first year in Tennessee. Like, don't compare your last year in Tennessee to your first year in Colorado, because it's not, it's going to be completely, it's like you're starting from scratch again, almost, not exactly, but you're going back a few steps. Like people have to, find out that you're here. So you have to talk about it. You have to post, you have to blog, you have to, really be active, like in the community. And so I think that was really encouraging because our first year in Tennessee was also really, really rough. And so kind of looking at it that way. So that's like the most encouraging thing I think I could probably tell anybody who is moving to not get discouraged, if their first year in the new place is not as successful as their last year, where they were well established for, 5 years or 10 years or however long. So, yeah.
I love that. That's awesome. And it's pricing is like a huge topic, right? Because there's so many layers to how we price ourselves, because there's a lot of like not only supply and demand, but also our actual money mindset and our actual beliefs around it and like that are ingrained within us, right? Do we even deserve, like, do we feel like we deserve it? All those things. But I love how you just said that sometimes in business, like if you just aren't booking, it's not that you're not worth that amount. It's just like simple, like facts, like supply and demand. Right now, you're in a new area, so maybe there's less demand for you because there's not as much like knowledge that you're even there, or maybe people referring you, right? So start off a little bit less. And what has worked for me amazingly over the years that I share a lot is like slowly increase your wedding pricing, like whatever pricing you have for portraiture or whatever, every 2 or 3 or 4 bookings, you can slowly incrementally raise it. And then it's like, if you get to a point where it's like way too much and you're just like, okay, for some reason people aren't booking. Okay, let me bring it down again a little bit and let me
Yeah.
play with that.
Yeah.
So I love that you did that. I love that you were flexible. I love that you didn't like take a hit to your ego and you're just like, okay, well, this is just what I have to do right now. Maybe your ego
Right.
did take a hit for a
Yeah.
second, but then
Maybe
you're
a
just like,
little.
no. Yeah. So I think that's
Yeah.
great. That's really, really great advice. I love that.
Yeah.
And okay, so let's maybe let this was like such a great little segment. I think this is a perfect place to just transition into yeah, like posing for your sessions to
Perfect.
be more fun and client relationships and all that. So maybe we can start it off by even asking actually I would love to ask you, this is such a random question. Do you enjoy directing couples and
Oh
posing them?
yeah, like what I love, like I'm just gonna spill this out, but like I love meeting a couple, whether it's like at coffee shop or 15 minutes before the session. I love meeting a couple, and almost this is gonna sound funny, but like almost seeing like the anxiety and fear in their eyes because they're so nervous because they being in front of the camera, and then I love just like soothing them and like making them
Oh,
feel comfortable, and then just seeing them completely just like relax and then have a really good time. Like it's just like you see like that transition in them and their body language and the way, especially in guys, like a lot of guys do not necessarily like to get their photos taken. So I especially see it in them. So it's almost like this little game I almost play. It's like how far can we take this couple? I mean,
yeah.
every couple is different. Every they all have different personalities. But yeah, I love directing couples, and I love just like finding the ways to make them feel comfortable so that they can be like directed or posed or whatever whatever we're doing. So yeah, I would
That's
say
so
yes.
fascinating. I've never heard anyone like explain it that way. And I think that's so interesting. Do you know why maybe that means a lot to you? Like why are you so passionate about giving like soothing couples like
Yeah.
anxiety?
I think a huge part of my personality in general, like in just my everyday life and just like interacting with people, I really thrive in just like making other people around me feel comfortable. And like anybody who like may feel like they're not part of the group or whatever, I want to talk to those people. Like I want to, invite them in and make them, I don't like excluding people. Like I don't like people feeling like they're left out or anything like that. So I think that's just like part of my personality. And I think that's honestly just stemmed from like, growing up and just,
Yeah.
I've always been like pretty bubbly and like, me and my family were a little bit obnoxious
I
at
love that.
times. And so, yeah, I don't know. So and I know that can kind of be overwhelming for some, especially for some introverts. Like
Hmm.
Kidron's an introvert. So me and him are totally opposite. So it's kind of like, I really want to make other people feel comfortable, even with my loud and crazy personality. I love seeing people, other people feel comfortable in their element. And I think with photography, when it comes to like couples and shooting couples, I need to like say that I've not always been good at this. Like I've definitely been very, very bad at posing couples before. Cause I
As we all
started,
have.
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Like I started shooting couples when I was like 17 or 18. I think I shot my first wedding when I was 18.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, and it's like cringy thinking about it now though. But in call like throughout college is when I started shooting really consistently with a lot of couples because everyone was getting engaged and they just needed a cheap photographer and I was around. So back then it was kind of like I literally just relied heavily on the couples to come up with whatever
Yeah.
poses they really wanted to do. And like we'd pull out Pinterest and like we'd compare like Pinterest ideas. And I just remember like feeling like so anxious before every single photo shoot and like just hoping that the couple would come prepared, like hoping that they would like, come with ideas and hoping that they would like come and just be, just be cute basically. Like I'd hope that they
Yeah.
could just come and like, make it easy for me basically. And after a lot of experience, I realized that, I really need to be the one to come, with ideas and with poses and make them feel more comfortable, because they would come kind of feeling uncomfortable. I was uncomfortable because I didn't have any ideas. So then we were all just uncomfortable and it would just it was never fun, So
Yeah.
I think it just kind of took years of like tweaking it and figuring out how to make it work and how to really make photo shoots fun and not just do the stiff posed Pinterest photos, but do actual fun activities and like making them like do something fun together and capturing real emotion, like all, so it's just been this thing that's developed for years, honestly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got off on a tangent. I don't remember how.
Oh no, I love it. I love your tangents. Like there's just so many questions that pop up from it. So it's amazing.
Oh, good.
I totally get it. You're trying to get noticed and you don't know how. I mean, raise your hand if wondering where your next booking will come from keeps you up at night. I know how that feels like. I was there once too. But I'm about to help you get clear on how to increase your bookings and inquiries. After coaching many portrait and wedding photographers, I realized they all had one thing in common that was holding them back from booking their dream clients. They didn't know how to market themselves. Once they got clarity on how to show up and put what they learned from me into action, they began to book more of their dream clients. And now I'm excited to help you do the same. So I've created a mini course called Crystal Clear Marketing to, you guessed it, help you get crystal clear on how to attract and book your dream clients. I mean, the year I implemented this, my revenue grew from $69,000 to $137,000 in just 1 year. So if I can do it, you can do it too. So in case you're wondering, inside of the Crystal Clear Marketing mini course, I share how to optimize your website so that more of your dream clients inquire and book, how to go from being a generalist to becoming a specialist, and why it matters, how to find out who you are at your core and fuse it fearlessly into your business. Also, how to show up on IG so you attract quality followers. That's so important. How to make the money you deserve while feeling fulfilled with your work, and how to make marketing effortless and fun, because it should be. Running our business should be fun. So what I'm so excited to share with you is that I've made this very affordable. So to get all the deets and enroll in this mini course, go to sarahmonica.com/crystal clear. Again, head over to sarahmonica.com/crystal clear. I cannot wait to see you in there. So I would love to know, for example, maybe we can give us some pointers on like, okay, how would you approach the start of a session when you know that a couple is more extroverted? And then how would you approach the start of a session with the more introverted couple? Wait, did I say introverted first or extroverted?
No, yeah, I got what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah. I would say extroverted couples, I would say I usually start every session kind of similar anyways. I kind of go into a session and if I don't know if they're extroverted or introverted, I really just like stand there and ask them a lot of questions, just like getting to know them, nothing like demanding, but I just like, I stand there just to get to know them and see, and my personality is going to be bubbly and it's going to be talkative, regardless. I'm just going to be myself, but also like I really want to draw them. I really want to listen to what they're saying. Like I really want to appreciate what they're saying and like listen and just like actually take that and apply it to the photo shoot. So, I just asked them, like, how did you guys meet? Like, what do you guys like to do for fun? Like, what's a great date night? Like it's, if they're like, oh, we just want to stay home and chill and watch Netflix, or if they're like, oh, we like to go out dancing and drinking. It's kind of get, little questions like that kind of give me an idea of, where their personalities kind of come from.
And can I pause you for a second?
Yeah.
Is that literally at the beginning of the session that you kind of ask
Yes.
them as you're kind of talking and walking?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll get to, especially because if it's just a photo shoot, like, if they haven't booked me for their wedding or anything and they've just inquired and like, oh yeah, let's do a photo shoot next month or whatever. Sometimes I'll get a chance to FaceTime them ahead of time. So I might ask them some of these questions ahead of time. But a lot of times on a photo, when they're just booking me for a photo shoot, I literally meet them the day of. And so, yeah. And so when we get there and we're like introducing ourselves, I just, wherever we're going to be walking to, I just start asking them questions, and we'll probably spend 10 to 15 minutes before the shoot just kind of talking. So I don't like to whip out the camera, right away, because I know that I know that they're already kind of feeling a little bit uncomfortable. So just asking simple questions. And you don't have to be like super extroverted or like bubbly like me to ask these questions, right? Like any personality, any person. If you're a photographer, I would say it is, it's easy just like to have those conversations. The more you have conversations with like random people and asking those questions, the easier it starts to get to. That also kind of calms you down in a way too, because you're just kind of like, if you're nervous going into a session, just like take a moment, like don't pull out your cameras right away, just like breathe and just like get to know them, ask them questions, and it goes so much smoother that way. Everybody's comfortability level is already so much better. Maybe not so much the guys take a little bit longer to warm up. But as far as you go and like the girl goes, like, there's already like connection and sparks flying, between the two of you. So I would say, but yeah, approaching an extroverted couple versus an introverted couple, I would say the whole session probably honestly looks pretty different with the two different types. So like an extroverted couple, I will probably do a lot more like movement, a lot more, exaggeration, just a lot more just like tossing around, throwing around, running
flailing
around. Yeah. So that's, and I can easily tell within the first couple of prompts I do, which I usually, no matter what couple it is, like I start small just to get a feel for their personalities and that kind of thing. And then the rest of the session, it's like, okay, like, I kind of keep going further and further. It's like, how far will they go? Some couples are just like all over each other. They're running, they're doing everything I say and more, like, and it's so fun. But some couples I can tell instantly that they're like, that is not for me. I do not want to pick her up. Like, so it's kind of like we have to fit, so if your couple is more introverted and just maybe not, and maybe they're not even as affectionate, like you might have a couple who doesn't like to do a lot of PDA. Then it's kind of like take it back a lot of notches, really ground the session into more of like, maybe just more like intimate, simple, like you can still do movement. Like anytime I have a couple, and it's a simple pose, I still add movement, like maybe swaying, play with her hair, rub her knee, like play with your hands. Like it doesn't have to be like they're all over each other making out, but adding any kind of movement where they're not just literally sitting there stiff, helps them relax and helps them just feel a little bit more comfortable, like doing these little movements. So I think that's probably how I'd approach like two different like sessions if they're like introverted or extroverted.
I love that so much. I love those little simple prompts because if you think about just like an extrovert couple and they're just kind of like want to be crazy and wild, and it's kind of like, okay, let's do the bigger movements. But then if you're thinking introverted, you can automatically just in your mind think, okay, smaller movements. What would that be? Graze her cheek. Like maybe kiss her ear really gently, like softly. And something that I learned is like couples that are more introverted find like solace and calm with each other. So technically all they need is just to be in each other's arms and they're comfortable, or like just holding hands and walking along. Right. So I love that so much. Like those two little examples just help understand how we can approach it without feeling panicked. Cause that feeling of panic sometimes where you're like, you have a brain fart and you're like, oh shit. Okay. I don't know how to keep proceeding here.
Yeah, totally. And I think a lot of times whenever I do get more of an introverted couple, it's actually like really fun because you can honestly be so creative with more simplified posing, because not only like when I pose a couple, I'm getting all kinds of different angles, close up, super far away, super, super tight, like kind of getting all the little like hand movements and like, close ups on their eyes or, their cheeks or like, their hands and different, like I just am kind of like trying to tell a story of like what their bodies are doing in a way.
I love that.
Yeah. So you don't even have to go crazy with like having 50 different poses in your pocket, just come up with like 10 and then, kind of just like play around with each one of those and all the different angles and that kind of thing. And just like let them chill,
I would love to know actually, how do you feel, how do you deal with like those thoughts in your head that sneak up that are judging yourself? Like for me, for example, if I'm trying something a little bit different where it's like, lately how like we've been seeing a lot of like hand images, like people connecting with their hands. I think they're just so beautiful.
Yeah.
But like during a session, sometimes I feel weird just being like getting right in there into their hands. And I feel like I'm just have thoughts of like, Sarah, they think you're weird. Like, this is so odd.
Totally.
But I'm like, Sarah, that's just like your own shit in your head. Like, do you ever have those like self-judgmental like thoughts in your mind during a session? And if so, like, how do you navigate them to just like bring it back to it's about them? And
right. Yeah, that's a really good question. I definitely used to. Like I feel like there was but like years ago, probably when I was going through like major transitions of like, okay, how do I go from like this stiff posing to like doing more creative stuff? And I think like I used to feel like it was awkward for me to ask them to do certain things because, well, for one, I wasn't confident in what I was asking them to do. So like, if I'm not confident, I'm asking them kind of like, hey, could you guys possibly mind doing this? So it's like you have to approach it in a right way and you have to be like, yes, this is what I want, and this is what I'm going for. And like, and your portfolio speaks for itself. So like a couple, when they're booking you, totally trust that like, what you're doing and you're getting this, the specific shot. So I think I definitely used to kind of struggle with like trying to be more creative and like asking them to be, like doing these kind of weird, creative kind of things. And I remember actually sometimes in the moment, when I asked them, hey, can you just like guys like, raise your hands in the air and just like play with your hands, it's like get some, like cool sky shots of just your hands. So they're literally standing like this with like their hands in the air, which totally probably feels weird. And I'll talk them through it. And I'm like, guys, I know this totally feels weird. It probably looks awkward, but I promise it's going to look good. So I am always talking to my couple. Like I'm always basically telling them like what's going on in my head. So that way they're not like wondering like, or guessing like, what is she doing? What is going on in her mind? Like, so that way they're not like sitting there uncomfortable. So I'm like overly communicating and like always talking to my couple while I'm on a shoot to like, just let them know like, hey, this is what I was looking for. And this is what, I just thought this would be fun, and so that's kind of, I don't know if that really helps kind of like answer your question.
Cool. Yeah. And do you ever feel like there's like moments where you need to leave space for quiet, or do you feel like, do you feel like that's not part of like how you feel like you work best? Because I know for me, I'm still trying to like with me shooting wedding days with a documentary approach, I am just on the sidelines, documenting as it is, not saying anything, just interacting with people if I have to, but like not necessarily directing. And so I'm used to being quiet. And so when it comes time to portrait time, I love, like, I can give prompts and all of that, but what I'm still working on, and I've talked about this before, is like those more intimate moments where sometimes I'm like, okay, if I want to create an intimate moment, that means I have to be quiet and they have to be present with themselves. And that's where I get a little uncomfortable. And I'm just like, is this a good quiet moment where they're connecting, or is this like they need to hear feedback from me? It's like that's what I'm trying to navigate right now, whether to stay quiet or give feedback.
Oh, like, totally. Yeah, that's a good, man, there's so much good stuff just in that question. Because there is definitely times where it's like you do need to kind of shut up and like let them do their thing, but it's like, I think for me, it depends on what my goal is with the photo I'm trying to get, and also maybe what pose I've given them. So some poses I leave up to interpretation. So it's kind of like, if it isn't an intimate moment, if this is more of like, hey, just go pick her up and spin her around, that's the only thing I say. And I just let them figure it out, and whatever, and it'll be them just kind of messing with it and see what happens. But there are moments where, you know, kind of like going back to when we were talking about doing more of like, you know, simple poses, you know, kind of just like let them relax in each other's arms. And there are sections where I stop talking. Like I just kind of put them in a position and I'll give them like small directions, like, hey, like maybe, you know, like rub her knee or like play with each other's hands. But then I'll literally say something like, okay, you guys just like hang out right here. Don't move. And I'm going to like step over here for a second. Like I'll still be taking photos, but like I leave them alone and like step back, you know, and give them some space and just like, but I tell them like, don't get up, like don't move, like stay right there, you know, so they're still like in that position, but it's kind of like, you know, you're giving them that space to like breathe, like just kind of like be, you know, in their own, you know, space. So it's like, there's definitely times for, you know, not being so like, like outspoken or not outspoken, like not talking so much, you know, letting them do their thing for sure. And then, like I said, you know, I would probably do that a lot more with like an introverted couple, just like letting them chill versus like an extroverted couple. If they're kind of like loud and just like their personalities are crazy like mine, we probably won't do as many of like calm, intimate, like, so true. You know, soak in each other, you know, look in each other's eyes or something like that. So it totally depends on the couples and their personalities, like kind of what directions I go and that kind of thing. I do love that you pointed, like you kind of mentioned weddings though, in general. I would say at a wedding, I'm like pretty much not like in the background too. Like at a wedding, like don't really I definitely don't like pose every moment. Like I just let everything happen. There might be like a time or two where I'm like, oh, like let's fix her dress here, or like, oh, can you stand closer to the window or something like that, you know? But for the most part, at a wedding, I feel like I'm definitely more in the background. But then I feel like then I kind of come back out, you know, during the portrait session time of like, okay, like let's do all these fun things. So,
I know it's kind of like we come out of our shell. It's like, it's our time now.
I know, exactly. Yeah. So that's kind of where I balance it out a little bit.
And I find that too, like, I feel like years and years ago, because my default as my personality was interacting with people, I like you, like being bubbly, outgoing, playful, right? And I used to get frustrated like years ago, like when I first started, like 8 years ago or something, that, oh my God, my fucking throat. Okay. Okay, Rachel, edit that shit out.
Keep that in. No, please keep that
in. Okay, fine. Now keep it in because that's funny. I was talking a lot today on like live and this, and I'm like, my throat ends up drying up.
Need some water.
Oh yeah. Okay. So I used to be like, get like frustrated when like not everyone was like extroverted like me. Right. And what I learned is like, accept, like the word acceptance and like kind of intuitive acceptance. So first, like feel the situation. So exactly everything we talked about, you just kind of feel it out, see which way they're kind of going. And then whatever it is, find the beauty in that, because both extroversion and introversion have beauty about them. And if you just accept it, that's when the creativity comes in, and that's when you know what to do rather than fighting it. Because if you're like, I wish this couple was just, if you could only lift her up and be excited about it, why isn't he doing it? Why doesn't he want to do it? Then you will literally stay stuck and not be able to create. And then you'll get even more frustrated. Then you won't deliver an amazing experience.
Yes.
So do you find that? Like
that was so good. Yes. I love that, because so many photographers come to me and they're like, oh, like my couples are always so awkward. Like they never want to do any of the fun stuff I ask them to do. Like, you know, and I hear this all the time. And now it's kind of like, well, you need to really pay attention to like the signals your couple's giving you. And that's why asking them those questions, and like, basically I just call it reading the room. You just need to read the room, you know, like if they, you know, and there are some couples, specifically guys, who literally just don't want to be there. They're like, this is absolutely the last thing I wanted to do on my Saturday evening, you know? So sometimes it can be tough, but if you're really catering it towards them and trying your best to really do what they would love to do, then, you know, you wouldn't have such awkward couples, because your couples are probably awkward because you're not serving them the way that you need to serve them, you know?
Yeah, because there's a disconnect with the energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like you said, instead of fighting it, like really cater it towards what they need. And I think that would honestly fix a lot of the
Yeah,
problems.
it would.
But yeah, I love that. That was great what you said.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, everything you said too. I even like you just inspired me so much with just like the smaller movements because I actually never thought about really like always think about saying, "Oh, can you guys like connect hands or hold hands?" But I never thought about like play with her hands. I've never actually said
Mhm.
that. I'm like, "Oh, that's such a beautiful like symbol."
Yeah.
Like and
Yeah.
everyone would do that in their own way and that's how you would
Yeah.
bring out
Oh
the
yeah.
authenticity. So that's a really cool one. Is there any other
I
like prompts that come to mind that you like are your go-tos that you love?
Oh yeah, I I feel like I have like a lot of go-tos that I'm sure in the course that I have, I'm sure people are so tired of like hearing me say them because I say them in like every shoot. But yeah, some of them are just like, well, some simple small directions I love to give are just, wrap your hands around her waist, sway back and forth, like kiss her cheek, like hold her face, yeah, play with each other's hands, like rub her arm, I like in that position, I love it. Like if I tell her like pinch his butt, and then they'll like start laughing
Yeah,
a little bit. And
I
then
love
I
that.
might say like blow a raspberry on her neck, so then they're really so it's kind of like you warm them up a little bit and then you see like how much fun they want to have with like, if she pinches her butt, like if she's really going for the butt, and then if they're both
Yeah.
laughing, like you can kind of tell that like they want to be playful and they want to have fun. So, so in moments like that, I love doing that. But, like piggyback rides are so fun. Just like bouncing her up and down and like swaying her back and forth, like to get her hair flowing. And there's so many like,
I love that. And I
yeah,
love
yeah.
how you said that you use them like because it's so smart to just have a list of let's say 5 that you start off every session with that are like
Mhm.
kind of like will give you an idea of like which way you're going to go. And the first one
Yeah.
because all can obviously be a walking prompt. I mean, don't we
Yes.
always just start with a
Yes.
walking
Yeah,
prompt? And then the
exactly.
other 4 are like amazing that you mentioned like wrap your hands around her waist, sway her,
Yeah.
like, those are just like you could just have your 5 go-to to start off with so that you feel less nervous to start off a session.
Mhm.
Those are so
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Um, and actually, I would love to know because I know you have a posing course, and I would love for you to talk more about that and like what you teach in there, what you offer, because I know my listeners would probably freaking love that. So maybe let us know more about that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I have a posing course that honestly, I feel weird honestly sometimes calling it a posing course because there's also so much in it besides posing that it's more like a client experience relationship course that also really helps you get creative with posing. But I go through so much, like before we even talk about like the photo shoot or specific poses or being creative, I just really talk about how can you get your couples to feel comfortable before you ever even meet them, or when you meet them, like all the steps that you take, from the time that they reach out, like what can you do to make them feel like they can trust you, to make them feel like, like they picked the right photographer, to make them feel like they have nothing to worry about. They don't need to be anxious or nervous on the photo shoot. Like, what can you do, to make them feel comfortable, and like that's like my goal, and make them have a really good experience, after the photo shoot's over. So I literally walk through like things that you could do on your Instagram and your website, that they can see and that they can just like read and like basically get information from you ahead of time before they reach out to you so that they know, oh, okay, I think she would be really fun, or he or she would be really fun to work with,
Mhm.
because of X, Y, and Z is on her website or Instagram. It's like putting yourself and your personality out there can really connect you with certain types of couples. And so I think, when you're starting to really draw in couples who really relate maybe to your personality or to maybe interests that you like, that you've posted,
Yeah.
in places, you're going to really draw in couples who you can connect better with. So there's like a section in there about that. And then we kind of go into, okay, so what's like a whole pre-shoot like section of like getting to know your couples. And like, we've talked about this actually a lot, on this podcast, but like how to get them to feel comfortable before you even pull the camera out, that kind of thing. And then of course, going really deep into creative posing and talking about, a lot of my posing isn't necessarily to get a cool pose, but to get like their reaction and emotion from whatever pose that they're doing. So I'm
Yeah.
not like, So I think a lot of photographers have a hard time because like, let's say they want, like the girl to laugh. Well, they can't just tell the guy, hey, make her laugh, because it's like, you're putting him on the spot, and it's like, he may not know exactly what to do in that moment. So it's kind of like, you need to think of prompts to tell him to do to her so that she will laugh. It's like, you have to kind of put the pieces together and like really get creative. So, I love to tell photographers, like, do exercises like, like if you're at home by yourself, like just like write down 10 poses off the top of your head, like get creative, like think of 10 prompts or like directions or activities to like communicate with your couple. Cause it may not just be like a pose, like, oh, stand here, but there may be like a paragraph that you need to explain to the couple, like, hey, this is what I want you to do. So it might take more than like a few words, so just sit down and write out, hey, what do you want to like try with your couples on the next session? And honestly, don't be afraid to pull out your phone either, to look at it during the photo shoot. Like, as long as you're telling your couple, hey, I'm not checking a text, I have a list that I really have been wanting to do, and I'm just gonna like check it really quick, so there's all kinds of fun stuff in this course that kind of just walks you through like the whole client experience, from like, when they reach out to you, how to email them, how to talk to them, how to communicate with them, how to get to know them, and all that fun stuff, all the way through like the end of the session. So you've got this whole like really good like course that just kind of like, basically at the end of it, yes, you're going to get, a better, creative posing, but you're going to give your clients like a better experience. And for me, like, that's like the most important thing. So it's going to result in some couples just like on fire for like, oh my gosh, we feel like models. Like, this is so much fun, so that kind of thing. So so that's I love that little summary of what's in there.
Oh, thank you for sharing. And like, that's amazing that you've taken the time, because I know how much work a course takes to create. So it's incredible that you've taken the time to create this resource and help photographers. And where can everybody find this course?
So if they just go to beccacannon.com under my education tab, the course is right in there. They can find links to it from there and read more information about it if they want to. And there's a bunch of different sections and a lot of information about the course. So if they want to head over to my website, then that's where they can find it.
Awesome. And is there anything else that, Becca, you want to share that's on your heart before we kind of wrap up? I was like asking my guests that just in case there's anything that you like, last minute thing you want to share.
I don't think so.
Or do you feel complete?
I feel complete. I'm so passionate about, posing and client relationships, and just like this whole topic is what I'm on fire for. So I'm so glad that you asked me to come on and talk about it, because I absolutely love talking about it. So thank you.
And it shows.
Yeah.
I'm just like sitting here with a smile on my face, because you're just like light up when you're talking about this. And I think that's amazing. I think I think you're in like such alignment in like what you're choosing to teach. And that's incredible, because that means that whatever students you're teaching, they're going to have like a really authentic experience in alignment with like like for the good of all people, humans.
Right.
Kind of thing, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Of course. And lastly, just to remind everybody, where can everyone find you on Instagram?
So my Instagram handle is Becca Cannon Photo. That's it.
Awesome.
Becca Cannon Photo.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. And this was so much fun. I can't believe this was like your first podcast ever, because you freaking killed it. And again, I'm so grateful for everything. And everybody go follow her. She's incredible. Her energy is amazing. And thanks, Becca.
Thank you.
Yay! Thank you so much for hanging out with me and tuning into this episode. If you got value out of it, please feel free to message me on Instagram at Sarah Monica Photo. That's Sarah no H, Monica with a K photo, to let me know. I get so freaking energized hearing from others that what I've said has had a positive impact on their lives. Also, make sure to hit subscribe to the Shine and Thrive podcast to never miss an episode. I'm so grateful for you, and I'm sending you all the productive vibes your way so you have the best week ever.